I'm here today talking with Dr. Rick Smith, who is a specialist psychologist working with adults and young adults. And I had three questions I really wanted to get his take on today. First question: what is the one thing that teens, adolescents really wish that their parents understood?
There was a study that asked teens, how many questions can your parents ask you until you get annoyed? Something like 10,000 teens responded. And you know the answer?
One,
Two.
two. Okay.
Two was the average answer. Yeah, some teens said three, some teens said none. But on average, parents get two questions. And I think it's relevant to say to parents that you do get two questions. So you got to make them good, though. But
Okay.
if you were to treat a teen like you can only ask them two things, then did you do your homework? What was your day like? Who are your friends? You get two questions. Make them count.
Two questions. I like that. And straight to the point. Two is a good number. It's a good round number. So the next thing, my second question going, so if parents are asking questions to teens or if they're noticing, their kids doing something, strange, out of character, maybe they just think it's normal. Are there any red flags that parents would want to look out for that sometimes they might just come across as normal, but it's actually really not?
The fundamentals of mental health really matter. And we don't have to get too complicated about it. Good sleep, time with other people, eat an okay diet, move around. Like this stuff really matters. And I think what parents see is their kids spend a lot of time inside. They spend a lot of time on a screen. And the answer isn't less screen time. They've got to be outside. They've got to be moving around. They got to stay connected. Things that deviate from the fundamentals are huge red flags. People like to argue about the minutia and like, should my kid take fish oil and should they have apple cider vinegar before a workout and how much exercise is in line with the tutoring and should I do an IB degree? And all this stuff is like just so irrelevant compared to the basics. Like be with people, get good sleep, move your body, get some sunlight every day. I never work with a kid in mental health that has mental health issues who exercises at the same time. Like it just doesn't happen. The kids that are like super active and physical, their problems are like, I can't manage all my friends and my homework, which is a big problem. Very different than like self-harm or the real problems that parents are seeing.
So you mentioned screen time. I mean, when I was growing up, it was like either outside playing in the creek out back or, watching TV or a movie or something like that. But there wasn't so many screens out there. Do you see any challenges that are coming up these days now because there's so much media, so much out there for kids to see?
I think the real challenge that kids are faced with is that their parents don't have tools on how to deal with screens. So like when our parents parented us, everything that they did was more or less what their parents did to them. And for better or for worse, it got us through. But they could do the same things that their parents did because our lives were kind of like their lives. The parents that are dealing with teens now didn't grow up with parents who knew how to deal with screens. So they don't have the tools and they're not equipped. And they're just trying things like timers and deleting apps and fighting over YouTube. And it's just not like the parents need a different skill set. I really think that's what kids are up against. And kids are not able to negotiate to get their needs met. And parents don't really understand what needs are out there.
Are there any tools out there that a parent can rely on these days?
I think the point is that there are tools and that the parents don't really know what they are. So harsher consequences it's not a tool. Finding out what needs are being met through screens. If your kid's getting a sense of adventure, excitement, they're on a quest because when they're gaming, but they're not actually out on a bike roaming through the streets and on a quest. Like the parents need to know like how to identify what needs are being met through screens and then get those needs met in other ways. It's not about less screens. It's about getting their life to be the type of life that it's more interesting than a screen that they want to live.
I think everyone knows that screens aren't going away. It's just the new normal that we have to deal with. The idea of kids going out from 8 a.m. till dusk on their bikes, roaming around the neighborhood, that's kind of gone. This is the new normal. So parents need to find ways to live in that normal. And, they're on the same journey that their kids are, I would imagine.
A parent just asked me the other day, how do I get him off his phone at dinner? And I said, there just has to be something more interesting than his phone. And they said, what's more interesting than his phone? And I said, being listened to. And I mean that. I think for a lot of kids, just have someone just listen to them. to share about their day. That's way more interesting than scrolling.
I like that. Like, do something that is more interesting than the screen. I think that is something that, parents can really take away from this. Because as you mentioned, the screens are there. They're not going away. But how do we live in that world now?
Yeah.
As we mentioned, it is an ever increasingly always on digital world that everyone lives in. Parents are living in. My mom's living in it. She's 75, and she's struggling to do what needs to be done. My dad, is doing the same thing, and it's tough. So, what is something that you would tell an adolescent, teen, even a parent? Is there one thing that you would say, how can we survive in the way the world is today while we are also looking after our mental health?
I really think that the conversation needs to go back to the fundamentals, to moving, to physically being with other people, sleep. I don't want to be dramatic about how important these things are, but I don't think that they get enough attention. I think a lot of attention goes to these like so much research on like parenting techniques and am I a permissive parent or an authoritative parent, or how much timeout is too much timeout, and do I do app controls? And I really think that a lot of that arguing just really gets overshadows the basics. The basics really matter, and I don't think people really pay attention to the basics.
So, the basics: sleep, attention, asking questions.
We were talking earlier about getting screens out of kids' hands, and we said something else has to be better than the screens. If you see kids hanging out with their friends, if they're good friends and they're having a good time, like their phones aren't in their hands. They're having a great time.
Yeah.
They don't want their phones. Like, it's just rare that they get a chance to go have a great time. Playing basketball, of course, they're not on their phones. They're playing basketball. And boys, for example, just love sports. They're not out like scrolling when they're on the field. And that's not just because it's inconvenient. It's because it's just not nearly as interesting as playing sports.
Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. How can people find you? How can people reach you?
rick-smith.com.
All right, everyone, this was Ask an Expert with Dr. Rick Smith, rick-smith.com. Come see him in Hong Kong whenever you are here. Thank you.